This video really was supposed to be shot last week, so I'm a week behind, but I want to talk about why. See, last week I got my first Social Security check. It's been on my calendar now, really since last year, that this first of the year I was going to get it, and then last October, November, I did the official application. So I put that down that you apply for January and you get that first check in a month later, which is February. Matter of fact, the way it's paid out, Social Security checks are deposited on the first, second, maybe second, third, or fourth week of every month. Uh, Wednesday of the first, second, third, or fourth week of every month. That was going to be last week, the 19th. But here's what happened. What happened was, you see, I forgot to acknowledge the birth date, the date of birth of my firstborn, which just so happened to be February 15th. And why is that significant? Because his name was John. He lived 4 days. He had hypoplastic left heart. Look it up. It's basically the left side of the heart's gone. So every year, and by the way, 42 years ago this has been. Now this makes me feel a little weird because who remembers someone that's passed? I mean, it's like time to move on. There's all these voices that talk about get on with life. There's nothing you can do about it. There's just something about me that has always said, obviously this is a very significant, trying time, extremely emotional, maybe one of the most emotional, if not the most emotional rocking times, events in my life. Hard to talk about it now, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. I've never talked about it, but in my own private way, and in a way, on a private family, particularly my daughter, always remembers that she had an older brother, and that our firstborn, her parents' firstborn, was born with a heart defect. So each year, I have it actually as a reminder or as an anniversary date that hey, every February 15th, I just take a moment to remember. Wow, um, that was the firstborn, John's birthday. He'd been and this year he would have been 42. 42, amazing, because I do believe in a reunion that I'll have with him. And another weird thought. Hate to meet up with him and say, well, I haven't thought about you since. I'll probably skip that. Yeah. But there will be a reunion. So every year I just silently just say, wow. And I'll recall some things about that very traumatic time, very emotional time of highs and lows each year. Well, now, how is it that Social Security plays a part in this? Because, and this seems like a very weird coincidence. And what came to mind is there are no coincidences. Think about so 42 years ago, this is difficult to put together because it's just difficult to put together. So on the 19th, last Wednesday, I waited for it with anticipation. A check, would it arrive? Is this going to actually happen? And it did. The Social Security check arrived, and I checked my account. There it was. Wow. And then when checking that, I thought, wait a second, it's February 19th. This is the week John was born. And then I realized, I didn't even pause for just a minute on Monday, the 15th, to just remember, like, happy birthday in my own mind. I don't publish it. I don't do that kind of thing. But it's just one of those things where, your firstborn, remembering that and remembering a little bit at that time. And so it was on the 19th, which was Wednesday, that on the same day I received my first Social Security check deposit. It was the day he passed. All right. I thought, how coincidental is that? It wasn't planned. Everything just happens. It's like, and then you think, I do think, what's the meaning behind that? I don't know. So what I had a feeling of guilt. I had a feeling of, how could I forget this? Yeah, this is cool that my life now. I mean, you got to go on in life. Life happens, right? But those kinds of things for 42 years, I have tried to always remember by putting that memory, notating it in my calendar, and just to remember his birth. It, just because he passed, it's one of those things where you wouldn't do that with another. Uh, you wouldn't forget your son or daughter's birthday, I would hope. Now, grandkids, they're hard. They're harder to keep track of when you have six of them. But again, you want to recognize this date of birth. It makes you feel good. And so, in some weird way, every year I tried to do that. Well, I forgot and I felt bad about it. I had to ask, why did I forget? I have forgotten it throughout the years a few times, and I always caught it later, a week later, 2 weeks later. And I always had the same kind of feeling of, um, I'm, what could, how could I do that? I was, just, you shouldn't do that. That shouldn't happen. This year, what was it that I thought, why would I forget this year? And, I tried to, there's no excuses. I think that's how I felt. But, I was thinking about this time and, the busyness of life. I wrote down the concerns of life, the worries of life, because these are all things as I face my retirement. These are things that are maybe because I am a worrier, always have been, but these types of things distracted me from really what was most important. And that's, birthdays and memories such as this that you've gone through and you move through life with. Having a hard time bringing this up because here's the point. It isn't necessarily this video about those issues because both of those could be future videos, particularly the fact that this was supposed to be about getting my Social Security, finding out, realizing that it happens to be during the week of his birth 42 years ago and passing that has changed what this video was about. So what happened next is what this video is about. I sent a text to the family chat text on the iPhone that said, "Hey guys, today's a big day. I got my first Social Security check/deposit." Ironically, it happened to arrive on the date of John's passing. Again, just what do you call that when something like a coincidence of it's a coincidence of a magnitude that makes you wonder. There are no coincidences, but it arrived on the same date. Well, that then triggered the following exchanges that I realized I had never talked about or shared to any degree with the family about that time. Something that significant in our family's history. My kids never knew of the details really about that. And nor did I ever even talk to their mom, my ex, because my my way of dealing with it was to just move on and move on as quickly as thoroughly as possible. So that, I mean, never took a day off of work for it. I just took off um, the day that we had a memorial service. And now I'm not saying that was probably the best thing. As a matter of fact, going back, I would have handled things differently, knowing what I know now, et cetera, and having come this far. But I then began to share with them a little bit of the details from the time of the birth and up to that, and then asking their mom to also. I'd never really heard what was she thinking. We really didn't handle that very well, did we? What Because she had a C-section, so she had to stay uh, in the hospital while he was transported to University Hospital in Denver, Colorado. And that happened very quickly the night of the first night. And so it was a whirlwind of 4 days, and there was a lot of separation there of what was going on and that type of thing. But I was sharing these things with my kids. And for the first time, they learned something about not only that period of time, which they knew of, but they also knew, probably had a little bit of understanding, or what's the word? Revelation of, wow, yeah, that would be tough. As a matter of fact, my daughter made the comment. She couldn't fathom the idea of what it would be like to lose a child. I've said many times that part of the foundations for my YouTube channel is building legacy, remembering the stories, telling the stories. And again, so amazing to me is all the things, all the books I've read, all the projects I've seen about doing a family legacy thing. And not one time did it ever occur to me that I should tell the story to my kids and for the grandkids of the time that John was born, what was going on during those 4 days, the days leading up to it, the days during, and then the days after. So many types of things. I know there's probably some people out there that have faced this trauma. Um, it's probably in many ways the same feelings and shock today as it was then. I could relate to that. But anyway, in telling the stories of the family, they're not all going to be great memories of celebration, but they're going to be memories nonetheless. And maybe those stories to share, make sure you document for your families of those that are not celebrations, are just as important, maybe more important, to understand those. And they're a little easier to talk about, as well as maybe know later, after the pain, after the healing takes place of the years that pass. Telling those stories that we've never talked about are maybe some of the most important stories to document for your family. With that said, the video, last week's video, which has become this week's video, I just wanted to document what was going on the last 7 to 10 days. This maybe is more for me and for the kids more than for you. But I do encourage, get those stories for your family, get them written down, get them recorded, get them outlined, because that's kind of where it's at now. Going forward, I'm going to take the text that happened the other day as I was recalling what I could and getting those together and to become part of the legacy story for our family. I encourage you to do that too. If you've got any experiences with that, I'd be really happy to read your responses in the comments. Um, these are things that are important to leave behind, to know we've left them behind, in the interest of knowing what's going on, what happened in our parents' past. I would like to know a lot more about what happened to my parents during when they were growing up. And of course, I don't have any of those stories. I don't have any of their recollections explaining some of the things in life, the good things, the bad things, the tough things, the challenging things. Um, One of the things I think we do in our retirement, if we've been so fortunate to make it, is to take that time we might have now and put these memories into a format of written or video for the benefit of our kids or our other family members. Going forward now, February 15th, I'll always remember, birthday for my firstborn. I'll also always remember the 19th now for two reasons. Number one, the day of his passing, and number two, coincidentally, crazily, the day I have received my first Social Security check, which as I'm going to declare going forward, was the official date or the date officially of my retirement.